This is a 2017 Subaru BRZ, freshly facelifted for the new year, and although it may not look radically different, Subaru have actually made quite a few changes to its exterior, the new pedestal spoiler being a particular favourite of mine, its interior and even elements of its drive. And the bottom line here is it brings it more in line with the recently facelifted Toyota GT86, a model that's almost identical to the BRZ, but it also gives it more of a competitive edge against other affordable enthusiast cars like the Mazda MX-5. But is the BRZ still worth a look? So let's start with what this car is most famous for, its handling, because with its rear-wheel drive setup, its low-mounted engine, which makes for very low centre of gravity, and its fully independent front and rear suspension, as well as a rear torsion limited slip differential, the BRZ is a car enthusiast's dream. I mean, this is a car that feels more at home in the bends than it does on a straight stretch of road. And of course, the spot-on driving position and embracing bucket seats help here. And thanks to this low centre of gravity and almost perfect 50-50 weight distribution, the BRZ feels like a Scalextric car in the bends. I mean, you can just guide it through with little fuss, and the well-weighted, sharp steering, which has pretty good feedback, helps here too. And again, that low down weight means the BRZ is just happy to change direction at a moment's notice and feel confident doing so. Of course, just like a Scalextric car, if you keep your finger on the go button long enough, you can come undone, but the vehicle dynamics control system in the BRZ allows you to, well, it allows you to be stupid without being stupid, if that makes sense. I mean, you can go into a corner at speed and stay in total control. And in fact, Subaru have actually added a track mode for 2017, which essentially just formalises turning the stability control off. And it also heightens the throttle response and speeds the gear changes up. And speaking of gears, this 6-speed manual is so mechanical and so physically demanding, but the labour really is worth it. And usually I would say going for an auto in a car like this is absolute sacrilege, but the 6-speed paddle shift auto that Subaru offers in the BRZ is so much fun for so many different reasons, so I'd definitely try both of the transmissions out before you commit. For 2017, the engine is the same. It's the same 2-litre naturally aspirated boxer petrol with 197 brake horsepower and 205 Nm of torque, which is accessed when you hit the 6,500 RPM mark. So yes, the engine is still quite stubborn in giving up its power. Now, Subaru reckons that thanks to more rigorous polishing techniques, this engine is now smoother and more responsive. Personally, I can't really tell the difference, but this engine is incredibly smooth anyway, and like I said before, you will have to bounce the revs pretty high to get performance out of it. But that's all part of the fun, isn't it? And the sound you get from that boxer engine is just a low down groan that slowly builds and builds. I absolutely love it. It sort of sounds like Iggy Pop clearing his throat before a gig. Now, the main problem people have with the BRZ is that they don't think it's sporty enough, and by sporty I mean fast, because a 0 to 62 time of 7.6 seconds isn't that nippy, at least not for a sports car anyway. But there's no doubt the BRZ's got guts. It just doesn't whip you back into your seat, and you don't get the pulse of a turbocharger. And a lot of people will argue that the BRZ should have a turbocharger. It should make it a second or two quicker. Why wouldn't you want that? But then you'd lose that pure smooth acceleration, wouldn't you? And given the sporting pedigree of the BRZ, it's actually pretty comfortable to drive, and Subaru have actually retuned the dampers to minimise body roll in the corners and make it more comfortable overall. And I think it shows. When it comes to the cabin, Subaru have listened to critics and tried to spruce things up a bit with some smarter touches, like this dashboard finish which reduces windscreen glare, and this BRZ stitching on these seats, and a new and slightly smaller steering wheel which has got a new leather wrap and has now got mounted controls. And behind this steering wheel you'll also see there's a new LCD display, and there's loads of other little tweaks and little touches thrown in around the cabin, including these toggles which are now a slightly different shape, and unfortunately they've lost their little click, and I used to like that. And in terms of the touchscreen system, Subaru's added a new 6.2-inch Starlink system, which brings it more in line with the rest of the Subaru range. But we haven't got that today. Today we've got the aftermarket Alpine system, which costs an additional £1,250, and for that money you get sat-nav, good news, but then you lose pretty much all other functionality. I just think this is rubbish. And just a quick note on practicality, there isn't much space in the back for those two seats. Kids might be okay, but leg and headroom for adults is a bit naff. And the 243-litre boot is actually surprisingly practical. It's certainly more usable than that in the MX-5. So the BRZ will cost you £26,000, which when you consider the price of Porsches, isn't too bad at all, especially when you consider the amount of fun on offer. And it's one of those cars that like a lot of hot hatches, you can drive it one day and just not be in the mood due to how demanding it can be. It's a bit like an excited dog that just wants to play, really. However, if more often than not you enjoy a hoon down a country road, then the BRZ is one of the best affordable sports cars money can buy. But what would you have? Would you have a BRZ, an MX-5, a Porsche? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.